a lot of AI art coming out, it is literally better than most artists' best work. If something does better by itself than an artist can for the entire life, I mean, brother, I gotta be honest with you, I don't really give a shit. I don't consume the method, I consume the product.
Yes, I can see that clearly. Since AI image generation technology was created, it hit the internet by a storm. From AI generated reels, videos, ads, to Pinterest photos, AI is everywhere and it is hard to escape. Even in real life, AI is kind of taken over. The more time passes and the more and the better it gets. So in this video, I'm not here to talk about AI, but I'm here to test myself against it. I am a pro artist with 8 years of self-taught experience and I want to test my skills against AI. Did I as an artist become completely obsolete and replaceable by AI? Only you can judge that in the comments. So to conduct my experiment, I went on Pinterest, one of the many websites that got infested by the AI virus, and started hunting for some samples of the so-called AI art to use for my experiment. So I ended up with this portrait. It's a portrait, pretty simple, nothing special. It's more like a demon devil girl wearing a necklace, like a cross necklace. Okay, Miss Blasphemous, you do you. So the first thing that I want to start with before I proceed with the painting process is to do a little bit of an inspection of the image, just to see. Of course, when we see it like this, it looks pretty good, right? And then when we start to zoom in, that's when we start to see the artifacting. You know, just around her eye, you can see how her eye, like the line of her eye just keeps breaking and artifacting all over the place. And also like her eyelashes look like are carved inside her eyelid. Oh my god. And also the texture of the hair looks like it's made of jello. Doesn't look like hair strands. The same can be said about the horns. Another thing is that one nostril is literally bigger than the other. And I know you're gonna tell me this is like a 3/4 view, so it's supposed to be like this, but it's pushed a little bit to the extreme. It's not supposed to be like one nostril is that small and the other is this big. All we see here, she's like losing a chunk of her hair. I myself, whenever I go, I just feel like hairballs everywhere, kind of like a cat. So I guess she's experiencing the same thing. And as well as the necklace is merging with the ruffles as well. And the ruffles, they look just so interesting. And one thing that really bothers me is like at the beginning when I saw this picture, I was like, the hand doesn't look that bad. And then I tried, like I really challenge you right now to take 5 seconds and to try to mimic. I want you to pick up your hand, your middle finger on top of your eye and the index finger on top of your chin, and try to literally separate both of your fingers this wide. You try that for yourself? Tell me in the comments if you were able to do that, because I wasn't. I was just in pain. And now let's move into the painting process. So the first thing that I'm gonna start with is with the sketch. Of course I'm gonna speed up the process of the sketch because nobody wants to sit down and see me sketching for 20 minutes straight. Now I'm gonna pick up the basic colors and I'm gonna, with the hard round brush, just the basic round brush, I'm gonna start applying all these colors. I picked up a pinkish, kinda like a pink toned skin color, and I start to apply that to her face. With the red pinky tone, I'm starting to paint out her lips and add some blushes just to make her look a little bit more cutesy. And so I fill in the colors of her eyes, then I start applying some basic shadows to her face, just on her neck and underneath her chin. So now I'm filling in the color of her hair, her little bit of her color, like the ruffles on her collar and her chest. I'm also adding in some basic shadow colors on the hair, filling in the horns as well. I added a little bit more blush just to make it more pop up on her cheeks and her ear. I also added the blue tone ambient color on the right side of her hair in the same fashion as the AI reference, and just to make the character more three-dimensional. Now I'm gonna zoom in, start by adding more details to the nose, to the eye bags, add a little bit more of red tones around the eye, kind of like makeup around the eye. I'm also defining a little bit like the corners of her lips so that way I can get that smirky expression that she has. I'm also adding in a little bit of a kind of like a grayish beige tones all over her face, just so that way the transition between the shadows to the light is a little bit more softer. With the lasso tool, I come in and select some chunks of her hair and add in that kind of like a golden shadowy color just to precise the shadows on her hair. I also separate the area between her hair and her chest and add in a little bit more shadow. Of course, I'm selecting the neck and adding the shadow around the neck. The neck has like the darkest form of shadow, so I'm adding that too. Now I'm gonna select, all I keep doing is literally selecting with a lasso tool, and then I come in whether with the hard round brush or with the airbrush and add in a little bit more details on these. The problem is that with the airbrush, it's very soft and it doesn't give you that hard edge, so I use the lasso tool to kind of contrast with the airbrush and select that hard edge and paint it with the airbrush. So now I'm selecting the hair and I'm adding just basic colors to the hair. You know, the area of the shadow, I glaze in a little bit of shadow, and the area where the light is supposed to be, I glaze in a little bit of light. I also love adding in a little bit like of shadow at the bottom of the bangs just to show that they curve inward on her face. I'm also selecting a chunk of her hair and adding in a little bit more shadow, and also selecting the cast shadow of the hair on the chest and adding that. And I also I kind of give it a little bit like a red top, just because in the AI reference it doesn't have like that much of a top, just to frame her a little bit. So now finally I have like my basic colors done, so I'm gonna select the face. I'm gonna copy the face on a different layer, start now details, going in details and adding a little bit more shadows, more midtones, and start to work in on her. So I start by zooming in on her eyes, add a little bit more color to the white of the eyes, and to start defining the eyeliner, her eyelids, and adding in a little bit more. I also removed her pupil and repainted her eyes because I wanted to rework her. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that I also merged the sketch with the painted layer because I thought like it's gonna give her the, because I kind of wanted the definition of the sketch on the painted layer, and I paint on top of both the basic colors and the sketches. I'm now adding in a little bit of shadow around her lips just to make her lips pop up and look more juicy. Also around the corner, I'm defining the corner of the lips and also adding in a little bit more shadow and defining that shadow that contours her cheek. With the lasso tool, I come in and select where I want the hard edge to be, and I start to use airbrush and glaze that shadow color. And I keep adding a little bit like more of a red toned shadow around her face and her eyes just to give it a little bit more depth. And I keep selecting the areas that I want to work with and adding more details, and I love kind of like zooming out of the face just to see exactly what I'm going on with my work. I don't like to stay zoomed in a lot because it's kind of like a bad thing to keep like zooming in a lot because you start to just work on little details and you don't see the bigger picture. So it's good to kind of zoom out and always keep focused on the bigger picture. As you can see, I'm also like defining. I think the reason why I picked this reference is because she has that very interesting kind of smirk expression, and I wanted really to recreate that. So it's really important for me to define the corners of her mouth to pick that same expression that she had. Now I'm coming and I'm gonna start adding a little bit more eyelashes, a little bit more detail here and there. And I use the lasso tool to kind of like select the eyelids, and I'm gonna take the airbrush. I'm gonna start to add in a little bit more shadow. Now I added the pupils and I'm gonna start like adding in more shadow to the eyes. I kind of like love adding that kind of like dirty shadow because I really think it gives more depth to the eye. And now I'm defining a little bit more the nose. I come in, I always like when I try to fix something, like to fix the shape of her cheek, to add a little bit more edge to this shadow shape, I always pick the lasso tool and try to select that area that I want to and start to use the airbrush to fix the problems in the area. So now that I'm zoomed in, you see how it looks more organic. It looks like the light and the shadow are working in together to give more three-dimensionality to the portrait. And she kind of looks at you like she knows something really deep about you that you don't know. I kind of like how she looks. I'm adding in a little bit more like a pink tone lighting on her hair. I know it's kind of like a weird choice. I think in the original AI reference there's a lot of pink tones added to a lot of the colors. Like even her blonde hair is a little bit more pink toned, her skin color. So I'm trying to add that to my own painting as well. I'm using the hairbrush. If you want my brushes, I literally offer. I have the full Photoshop brush pack available to download for free. I have all my brushes that you see me use here are all available in that pack, including the hairbrush that I'm using right now. And with that hairbrush, I come in and I start to define a little bit more color, add a little bit more lighting, more variation of color, and add in also that shadow color. The hairbrush that I have kind of gives me like that illusion of hair strands, so I don't have to go in and start drawing each hair strand by hand. The brush takes care of that. So now I'm selecting that cast shadow that the hair has on the chest, and I'm gonna come in with the airbrush and I'm gonna add in like a very dark color, just as dark as the shadow on her neck, just to show that kind of depth, that occlusion shadow. So now I'm selecting and I'm adding a little bit of shadow around her booba. And I'm zooming in again on the face to keep working on it, because I think the focus of this painting is the face, so I'm dedicating most of my work on that area. Define the eyelashes a little bit more. And I also, with the airbrush, I pick like a smaller size airbrush and I go in and add a little bit more details around the face. I keep working like redefining the nose, the eyes, because painting with the airbrush alone can give you really like a pretty muddy type of result. And it took me kind of quite a lot of time to learn how to use airbrush to my advantage. So yeah, now all I'm doing is just with the smaller size of airbrush, I go in and I fix some things here and there. This is where I'm gonna start like adding in the hand. So I start by sketching the hand, adding a little bit like, you know, with the basic color, adding like the pink tone on her knuckle and her fingers, like the top of her fingers, and then like the basic shadows. And I started like rendering it. I also sped up the process because nobody wants to see me struggle for like I don't know how many minutes just drawing a hand just to look like this. I actually didn't like the way how it ended up looking. When I posted it, I mostly wanted to post this without the hand because I think it looked way better without the hand. I kind of like at the end was so tired of working on this non-stop, so I just wanted to move on with the hand. I didn't want to put that much effort on the hand. Yeah, and I ended up with this weird mutated hand, but it's better than what the AI did, right? Tell me in the comments which hand you prefer. I mean, which fingers. So now I'm gonna start actually working on her necklace. The way how I draw jewelry, I stole it from Wulop. You know that artist? I think his name is Wan Ling. And what I do is that I come in with like the hard round brush, but this time I use it with the pressure. And I start like drawing like the basic outline of the jewelry that I want to draw with like just a random base color, like a warm tone base color. And I start adding in the basic shadow colors of the cross, just like little dots here and there, little shapes, and adding like a little bit of it. And with like the kind of like a skin tone, kind of like a beige skin tone color, I start to add in like the basic reflections on the cross and the necklace. I added a little bit of ambient like color, like by adding a little bit more blue tone in it. As you can see, I just keep adding. I wasn't really sure about like how I wanted to paint the cross, so I was just trying to add in a little bit more, you know, a little bit more ambient lighting, a bit more shadow, and kind of like experimenting with it. And I ended up like fixing the shape of the cross with the lasso tool at the end, and added a little bit more edges, more dark edges here and there. And yeah, I think it doesn't look that bad. I went on the brightness and contrast and popped up on the brightness and contrast, and I increased the contrast of the jewelry just to make it look a little bit more shiny. And with that, I finished recreating this AI artwork. Hope it looks a little bit better. So tell me in the comments if I did a good job at recreating this AI reference or not, and tell me which one you prefer.